Good evening and welcome to episode 2 of season 1 of Talk Up, Talk Out, the program that amplifies the voice of the youth. Good evening. I am Pastor Lincoln Liking. We have a show in store for you. If you weren't here with us last week, where were you? We're looking forward to having you on our platform, on YouTube, on Zoom, because we want to amplify the voice of the youth. Can you hear me now? The youth will be heard this evening. And of course, we have an excellent lineup. We have excellent guests. We have excellent youth on our program discussing a topic that we think is extremely relevant. You see, we didn't just select these topics just out of thin air. We listened to the youth and we selected the topics that you wanted to discuss. And this evening, we will be discussing an important topic. And we've titled tonight's program, When Going to Church Hurts. When Going to Church Hurts. This evening, we are looking at church hurt. Some of you may be very familiar with that term. Some of you may be wondering, what is church hurt about? We'll be discussing that this evening. I want to take this opportunity to welcome you here. If you're joining us for the first time, especially on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click that bell notification so you can be notified when we go live. Talk Up, Talk Out comes to you live at 7:30 p.m. on a Thursday evening. This is the time for the youth to be heard. Join us. We want to hear from you. And of course, joining me this evening is the Youth Ministers Director with the Central Jamaica Conference. I'm talking about the man himself, Pastor Scott. Pastor Scott, welcome.
Good evening, Lincoln Liking. Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure once again to be on episode 2. Before we quit, we are at the end of the season, and we are talking about when going to church hurt. I just want to say a very special greeting on behalf of our Central Jamaica Conference administration once again to those who are on, and I pray that as we go through this topic this evening, those who are watching, those who are listening, you will be empowered, you will be strengthened as you discuss, as we discuss this very important topic about church hurt. And Pastor Liking, we have some very dynamic spirit-filled young people that are on to discuss this topic this evening. Last week we had a set of youths. This week we have a different set of young people who are fired up and ready to go to talk about this very, very important topic. And so we'd love for them to introduce themselves at this time, right, Pastor Liking? So we'd love for those who will be sharing in this discussion to go and just share with us your name, your church, as we seek to be acquainted with those who are taking part in the discussion this evening. We see Sister Isaacs, we see Brother Isaacs, we see Sister Burke, and we see Sister Judine. So we'd love for them to go ahead in that order, just to introduce themselves so that we know who are the persons participating in this discussion this evening.
Absolutely. I am going to invite Sister Isaacs to begin. So she knows, she opened her microphone first. So
yes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Natasha Hutchinson Isaacs. I am a member of the Wholemeal Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is located in Montego Bay.
I think it's only right for Brother Isaacs to go next.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ezra Isaacs, and I am a member of the Asia Seventh-day Adventist Church. Our membership will be with us shortly.
All right, Sister Judine, please go ahead.
Good evening. I am Judine Smith-Costley. I'm from Palm Estate Church in Linstead, St. Catherine.
And of course, last but certainly not least, we have Sister Denisha. Sister Denisha, good evening.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Denisha Peterson-Burke from the cool hills of Clarendon, Blackwood SDA to be exact.
Wonderful, wonderful. And once again, I just want to thank you all for joining us to discuss a topic that's I think is extremely important, and one that's tends to be overlooked as it relates to church relationship. And so I think that it's important for us to have this discussion. I know sometimes we make light, we want the program to be lively and enjoyable, but this is a very deep program. And of course, I want to go ahead and invite persons who are here on the Zoom platform in the chat, or if you are currently watching on YouTube, to interact with us by commenting in the chat. We'll be sharing your comments, we'll be reading your questions and doing our best to facilitate your voice this evening. Now, we want to go ahead and begin by trying to define terms. I think it's important for us to define terms. Sometimes we use words, and even though we all speak English, they mean different things for different people. And so how would you define church hurt? When you hear about church hurt, what does it mean to you? And you can add to that, have you ever experienced what you're describing? I'm going to begin with Sister Judine.
Hi again. Well, I would define church hurt as the unintentional harm caused by someone who should be a Christian to someone who is also aiming to be a Christian or would have accepted Christ. Honestly, I can say that I wouldn't have experienced it as much as others that I've seen before. And because I haven't experienced it much, or based on the type of person I am, I just allow certain things not to affect me, then persons may have caused unintentional harm, but I don't really pay much attention to it. So for me, yes, I would have experienced it, but I don't let it affect me.
Oh, thank you for that. Interesting definition, unintentional. That's interesting. I never thought about that as it relates to the whole issue of church hurt. Something we do that's unintentional. I think I want to go with a couple this evening, beginning with Satasha, followed by Ezra. Your definition of church hurt, and please tell us if you have ever experienced.
Okay, in my opinion, all right, I think that church hurt is when an individual or a person comes to the church, especially if they're in you could say a vulnerable state, they're looking for something. They are looking to have a closer relationship with God, and, try to be a part of a church family, but instead, some persons from that church family, they would not have offered them the support that they would have needed in that time, but instead greet them with, hurtful words, hurtful actions, tearing them down instead of lifting them up. So, in my opinion, that is more or less what church hurt is for me. Yes, I have experienced a lot of it, and honestly, it's only by the grace of God why I'm still in the church. Honestly, um, it's not easy being a young person, a young adult, a teenager, trying to get a closer relationship with God. You know what you want, you know the path that you're supposed to follow, the persons who are supposed to be um, supporting you and nurturing you and helping you along that path are the person tearing you down. So I have experienced a lot, but and to me, I don't go to church for people. I go to church for God. And the sad reality is a lot of people leave church because of church hurt. And I honestly understand why. Because I got to a place where I told myself, well, you're not going to church for people, you're going to church for God. But the sad reality is that it becomes difficult to worship in an environment that has basically become toxic for you. It becomes difficult. So I just tell myself really that it's mind over matter. And and I have to stop focusing on everything that's being said around me that is happening, all the negative, and just focus on what I need to focus on, and that God.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And when you talked about your experience, I could hear that you definitely had an experience as it relates to church hurt, and I do appreciate you sharing that. Go ahead, Sir Isaacs.
Thank you. Well said, Mrs. Isaacs. Church hurt to me is a mental, emotional, a spiritual, and physical hurt. Our pain that someone receives from a church member. That is my definition of church hurt. Have I ever experienced church hurt? No, not really. I haven't experienced church hurt. Well, if I have, I would have ignored like my sister Cosley. I'm not a person who is easily distracted or discouraged, so I would normally just ignore it. Yes, but yeah, man, I've experienced church hurt.
Sister Denisha.
Yes, my definition, I think everybody has somehow touched what I was thinking of as I thought about defining church hurt, but my definition is really emotional pain, physical pain that people feel, whether it was intentional or unintentional, from members of the church, leaders of the church, as they went through their different situations. Have I experienced church hurt? I have, on some levels. I was a part of another church before I became an Adventist, and it happened there, and it also happened in my experience as an Adventist. So yeah.
I think it's so unfortunate that we have to experience that in church, because one would think that a church is supposed to be a safe space.
Church is that place that you're not supposed
but the
to be
reality
hurt.
is, church was not even a safe place for Jesus. All right. Go ahead, Pastor, because I'm saying the church was not even a safe space for Jesus. And so maybe we need to rethink how we look at church as a space.
Indeed. And we've said it time and time again, persons don't leave the Adventist church because of doctrine and teaching, is how we treat each other. And so I'm really happy for the persons who have shared and your own definition as to what church hurt is, and you see that it has a little bit of a difference depending on each person's own experience, and of course we recognize that church hurt is not something that is easy to deal with, because sometimes you hear the person, if it's a particular person, sometimes speaking every day when you go to church, nearby you where you need to sit and interacting as though everything is all right. And so yes, church hurt, as persons are sharing online, is something that it not only happens for the time, but it can be something that takes you through so many of your life's experience and for years. And so I'm really appreciative of persons who have shared on that topic, and also sharing, being open to share that, yes, I've experienced church hurt. For me, yes, I've experienced church hurt personally. And I also think that if you hurt my family member, for example, if you hurt my mother, you've also hurt me. And my mother experiencing church hurt had an impact on me, because I assisted that had, and I do that to my mother. So so yes, I've had that experience as well. And so for me, to just add to the definition, I do believe that church hurt is when you the persons that you expect to treat with situations a particular way, they treat with it in a way that cause you to feel you feel low. For example, you're talking about treating with you how you dress, treating with you if you've gotten pregnant outside of wedlock or have had a child outside of wedlock, how as a church we treat with how persons what they do for a profession, or how they make a living, or their reactions and actions in certain settings, how you deal with situations have a lasting impact as it relates to church hurt. And sometimes without getting to the root of what the situations are for particular persons and making judgment really does have a lot to do with the church hurt that a lot of us experience. And so, Pastor Lakin, I want us to go quickly to our follow-up question. And I'd love to hear the feedback from our team members in relation to that. Do you know someone that has experienced church hurt? And to twin it with this question, do you think the leadership of the church adequately addresses the issue of church hurt? Say it has happened, do you think after the church, our leaders of our church, whether from a conference standpoint or even a local church standpoint, address the issue of church hurt adequately? So if you know someone, and do you think that we address it adequately in our local churches? And to follow up that, what do you think can be done about it? So it's a threefold question. I know you can try to formulate the answer in a minute or so, but do you know someone? Do you think that the leaders of the church, of your local church, address the question, the issue adequately? And what do you think can be done differently when church hurt has happened, and how the church should react to it? And so we could start from Sister Burke, and then we will come around.
Thank you. Yes, I know someone. I can think of the person right off the top of my head now who has left my church as a result of church hurt. No, I do not believe that the leaders of my local church dealt with the situation adequately. And what can be done? I think education, because we somehow have been cultured in not facing the real issue. We do have tendencies of trying to sweep things under the rug, and that of course does not help a situation, that does not provide a solution. And I think we just need to be educated. We need to learn how to be emotionally intelligent, so that when our members are faced with their different challenges and their different situation, that our first action is not to criticize, but to provide support and reconciliation and so forth, so that they can feel the love of the church, rather than to just sweep it under the rug and it appears as if we don't care, and then they are basically left by themselves and seemingly think there is no other option than to leave the church.
Amen. Thank you so much. Sister Judine, you could go ahead and give your response before we take the couple.
All right, sure. Yes, I do know persons who would have experienced church hurt and they left because of it. I've also seen persons who, yes, they experienced church hurt, but there were other persons who within the church who reached out to them, and because of what those persons did, they stayed. So I've seen both sides of the coin. I don't think us as leaders adequately address these issues, as was mentioned. Often we just scratch the surface and then we push the rest under the rug. And if we know anything about biology, whenever we have a cut, it's not just the surface alone that we need to deal with. We have to dig out the issue itself so that we can get to the root of the problem, and then we can experience healing. And I have recognized that even though we are dealing with individuals, or problem isn't with those individuals, or problem is with the enemy, and he uses whomever it is that he can use. Once we give him an inch, he will go the extra mile in order to use us to cause harm to other persons. So we have to be on our guard and recognize that we are in a warfare. And if we have persons in the church who are unconverted, then we're going to continue to experience these challenges. Also, when we recognize that we're dealing with the enemy and not just our brothers and sisters, we treat them with a little bit more gentleness when we see that this person is just allowing Satan to use them basically. And we have to get to the point where we have a personal relationship with Christ so that even if, and I'm not saying that it doesn't hurt, it does. And even if we experience these hurts, we don't allow them to cause us to leave the church for who we came there to serve in the first place. Satan goes to church as well. And he comes in some of the nicest clothing, in the prettiest faces, but we have to recognize who he is for what he is. And he doesn't like unity. So in whatever way he's able to get into our skin, he studies us. He knows what kind of challenges we have. And yes, we might be a little fragile in certain areas, and not just leaders, but other members of the church have to be mindful of this and don't follow culture. Because as some see it, so some can come do it same way. And as the persons who are inside of the church, we don't learn how to deal with these issues. We just deal with them in the same way that we saw others before us dealing with them. And that's not how we're supposed to be following the method of Christ. So we have a lot of learning, education, as Sister Burke would have just mentioned, educating ourselves too, because we can't just rely on the leaders to help us to get education. No, the information is there at our fingertips. Even Sister White would have given us some guidelines on these things. And so we as individuals, not just leaders and members of the church, we have to take responsibility for how we treat other persons and ensure that we are getting so connected to God that the love of Christ can be reflected through us to the individuals around us.
Thank you so much for sharing that extremely powerful responses. And yes, I'm not oblivious or above the whole issue of church hurt. You know, I've experienced it, I've seen it. But as Sister Isaac says, you know, and I believe Sister Jadina Denisha echoed similar thoughts. We're not here for other persons. We're here to serve the living God. And so we continue to push forward in spite of the challenges. I want to take this opportunity before we go on to our other questions. I want to take this opportunity to share some responses that we've been getting from the chat, because of course we want to amplify their voices as well. And so I am seeing here, Maureen says, I have never experienced it, that is church hurt, but it is real. I saw persons go through that experience, and trust me, it is not nice. Maxine is saying, I can't recall experiencing church hurt. I've seen where others felt hurt because they made a mistake, like getting pregnant out of wedlock, and was looked down on and talked about. And I see Candice Andrews with an interesting perspective. I'd love to hear some feedback on this one. Candice said, church has strengthened us. It shines a light on our current Christian state. That's quite the perspective there. Yes.
As I heard that, Pastor
Liking, feedback on that, I think Pastor go.
Yes, as I heard that, that is so powerful. Where the person is saying, you know, it shows where our state is, and state of the church, state of the person in their Christian journey, and all of that, and that's profound, because even though it is anticipated that the church is a place that the person should be comfortable and be able to experience the joy of worship, sometimes for others it is not. based on where they are and based on the type of persons that they may interact with while being at church. But then it is sometimes a test of your, you go through the fire, so it helps to refine you, and how do you react when you experience that? Is the easiest thing to do to leave, or is the easiest thing to do to stay? But sometimes, either whichever step that you take, it's an indication of not only the state of where you are, but also the state of your particular church, and persons may not necessarily feel comfortable in moving on at that church. So I definitely love to hear the feedback of others as well on this. Do you think that it shows your state as a Christian in terms of church hurt and how you react to it? And we can take Ezra, seeing that he's also to come in on the last question.
All right. Let me comment on a couple of questions first. Yes, I've known persons who have experienced church hurt. I've known some that have left the church and some that have remained. Those who I know remain, as my sister Costa said again, it's like you're in my mind. Is situations where persons, some either youth or some leaders will reach out to the individual, knowing the situation that is going on, and speak to them one-on-one and try to rectify the issue that will allow them to stay in the church. For those who left, those who leave, sometimes a case that the elders or the leaders don't know about it. It could be some altercations with members in the church, and they leave and they don't know about it until maybe they go visiting and they see the persons. Why haven't you been to church? And then you hear that there's an altercation between this member with another member. So that could be a reason. Can the leaders do more? Of course, the leaders can do more. We know that sometimes in sermons we hear pastors preach at the church are place for sinners, right? And some elders say, yes, man, even hypocrites come to church. You understand? So we preach it in a general audience. But I think it's best if we try to do it around one-on-one, in a small group, maybe in a Bible class setting, maybe in a AY. We could tell them what to expect from church members. As was said before, church is viewed as a place, is viewed as a safe haven. A person sometimes come to church expecting the church to be perfect. But as was said, remember the church is a place of sinners. Persons have their challenges. Persons are struggling with their own things. And sometimes persons might say things out of anger, not necessarily to hurt an individual, but due to the situation that they were in at the time or the state of mind, something might come across that would affect that person. But yeah, man, the leaders can do more. As it relates to the state of our state of Christianity, yes, that could also be true. It could also reflect on the state of our Christian life is in. It could also be a state of our own personality. That our grandparents, right? They were grown rough. So if you do something wrong, they're going to approach you in a rough manner. You understand? And maybe we were here, if our grandparents approach us in that way, we would understand that they're coming from a place of love. But this new generation of youth, they're not used to that type of roughness. So when you come across rough to them, they're going to be resentful, and they're going to pull themselves away because that is not what they're used to. Understand? So it depends on the personality of the person at the time and how the person perceives it as it comes across.
And Pastor, like as before Sister Isaacs come in, I want, as Ezra is speaking, it goes back to something that Judine said earlier in her definition, the whole topic of unintentional hurt, because sometimes you would think that persons who are reacting to a situation really genuinely think that they're helping or trying to help, or trying to help. And sometimes how the matter is dealt with, how it's done, the person's walk and where they are in the stage of their walk, or even if that person has a strong spiritual walk, but sometimes certain things are so painful not even what is said, but who it is coming from, the tone in which it is said, the context in which it is said, where it is said. Sometimes persons, the situation might be a person knows intimate details of what you are going through and make insensitive statements. And sometimes certain statements, I've been a pastor long enough to see persons make statements and persons just get up and cry. I've been in business meetings long enough to see, based on what was said and how it was said and who it was said by, cause persons to get up and want to react physically. Church hurt is real, and we're underscoring the point. And some of the times, persons can be super insensitive to what persons are going through and what the challenges are. And some of the times persons just feel as though because of this, I just cannot move past it. I cannot sit and have that person speak to me. I won't get a blessing, and that's sometimes how persons interpret. And so what Tracy is saying in the comments, where it is easy to expect others to toughen up and move on, but the reality is persons are in various stages of their journey, various stages of their life, various stages of their experience, and certain things cut so deep that it does take time to mend, especially, and that's a point that we want to get later on, when there are not mechanisms put in place to address the issues and also find a way to overcome them. The whole matter of visitation, you hint on it, Pastor Liking, some of the times, unless you go and visit and hear and someone who is not coming, sometimes you won't even know that this is a thing that has happened. And so it just continues to fester and the person doesn't come. So I really want us to be mindful of that certain persons are going through deep emotional psychological, and I think Ezra spoke to it, emotional and psychological hurt, that it, even listening to our conversation, it does seem so hard to move past and cause them to really be in significant pain. And we don't want to turn a blind eye to that. And we want to let persons know. That's why we're having this discussion this evening, to let you know that we understand that this is something that happens, and we want to have this being echoed so that others can know that they have to be careful as to how they relate to issues at church. Sister Isaacs.
Okay, I know a countless amount of persons who have experienced church hurt and have left church as a result. I think at the time when I was attending my church, that before I went off to NCU to study, about say 90% of my peers had already left church because of that. And yes, I definitely think the leaders, they can do so much better, put in a lot more effort. But I think we also need to realize that a lot of the hurt also comes from the leaders. It's not just the church members. We have some persons who they behave as if they're holy and they've never made a mistake before. But when you have young people, I mean, some persons scream out for attention in different ways by doing different things. And if you're going to approach a person like that, you can't look at a person and know what they're going through, right? You have to, it's all about the approach. You have to be sensitive to the unknown situation that is going on, and you just have to come with your help. If you're trying to help a person who you see is vulnerable, why they acting like this, they acting out, they never used to behave like this, and something has changed. you have to be patient with them, first of all, especially with young adults. You have to be patient, and you have to show them that I'm not just coming here to talk to you just to know your business. I actually care about you, and I really want to help you. And I think the change should begin with the leadership, and then from there the leaders can help the congregation by having programs and so on, because I've personally never seen a program like this before. I'm really happy and excited about this. I've never seen a program like this in the church, and it's very important that um, these things are taking place so that the leaders can get help, the members can get help, and the person who, would have experienced the hurt, or, maybe in situations um, that would cause them to experience it, just to say, can get that help as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know Pastor Scott is itching to get to some other questions. We have some very pointed questions that we'll be asking in a little bit, but I can't leave out those persons who are joining us via YouTube. I have to share some of those comments right now. I see some really heartbreaking ones. I see one here saying that basically that my daughter left the church about 13 years ago because of church hurt from leadership. I'm praying by God's grace that she will return. Such a heartbreaking experience, and we continue to pray that your daughter will return to the church and have that living relationship with God. Maxine asked, back in the days, they used to read persons out of church when they got pregnant out of wedlock. Why? That's something that we may be able to discuss or highlight in a future program, because I think that's an important question. And she adds that the church is supposed to be a hospital, not a resort. A lot of sick people in hospitals, a lot of people at different stages may have negative experiences as persons grow in their relationship with God, even among the leadership. That is the reality that we have to live with. Pastor Scott, I know you have a burning question there that you'd like to.
Yes, as we have just about 15 minutes, I'd definitely love for us to discuss answers and solutions to help guide those who might be on, to help with our leaders who may be watching, to say, what are the things that we can do? And so it's a twofold question. One, and I think Pastor Liking, you hinted to it in the chat. How do you think older persons should go about correcting or helping our young people without hurting them? And then the follow-up question is, if we've experienced church hurt before, what are some of the things that we can do to help us as to heal, help us to heal? I asked this question because Pastor Liking, I preached a sermon on forgiveness once, and I said, if there's somebody that you need to forgive, come to the altar. Friend, I did not have space on the podium, 0 space, because there were some people having up some people, you see, in the very same church, and you have some people that are really having up some people in their hearts, or having up some experiences in their hearts. And maybe very soon we have to talk about the whole concept of forgiveness, and how do you forgive, and that sort of thing. But yes, do you think there's a way that leaders, other members of the church can address concerns without having church hurt? And the follow-up question is, if you have experienced church hurt, what are some of the things that you can do to heal? I see Sister Francis' hands up, so I'd love for her to just drop her question or comment in the chat so that we're able to respond to it. So I'd love for esteemed panel of youth leaders to respond, to that question. And then, of course, Pastor Lakin and myself could give a feedback. So let me take Sister Janine, and then we will take the responses.
All right. I'm thinking for older persons, educate. We are never too old to learn. Yes, we may have been used to doing things a particular way, but then it doesn't mean that because it was done this way for so long, that is the correct way. And especially if we want to reach our young people, we have to ensure that we ourselves are presentable. In other words, we don't come off as being holier than thou, where if we see them making a mistake, we just go ahead and, all right, yeah, man, this needs to correct right now. And we're not doing it out of love. So for the older ones, educate yourselves, get wisdom, get knowledge, get understanding, and most of those come definitely from God. If it is that you know you don't approach things so well, find somebody who is close to the young person in question that you know they look up to and can relate to, and that will deal with whatever situation in a better way than you would. Not to say that you're going to spread people in business, but you are confidentially going to this person and saying, hey, I recognize this. I know the person raps well with you. Can you? And when you do it that way, you recognize that the young persons will be more receptive of getting correction if it's correction, or help if it's the help that they need. So sometimes we see a problem and we definitely want to address it right now, or the older persons want to address it right now, but honestly, they're not the best person to. So find the best person who is able to or should be able to, and you can take it from there. I would advise my young people to, well, one, learn that Satan goes to church. When you learn that Satan goes to church, you will see things from a different perspective. And no matter how he comes at you, yes, sometimes it might pierce you to the core, but then when you recognize that Satan is out to get you and he'll do so in whichever way that he sees he's able to, then you can take it one step further to know that, all right, what can I learn in the midst of all of this, even though I'm hurting? How can I grow so that if it is that I am faced with a similar situation down the line, I won't give the same response? Because sometimes as young people, we run from one area where we're having this challenge and we go to another area where we experience the same challenge, and we can't keep giving the same response, and we're not growing out of the experience. So it may be hard, however, we can do it. And Christ is the one that we want to emulate. We are not responsible for how other persons reflect Christ. We are responsible for how we reflect Christ. So learn, spend more time with God. It's a challenge, especially in this day and age where we have so many distractions. We are busy trying to make life for ourselves. Spend some time with God, and he will help us to even reach these same persons who are hurting us. And it's sometimes through us that these persons can recognize that, hey, I've been doing this thing so wrong for so long. I have caused harm to so many people. And sometimes we might sit down and want people to come and apologize, and they will never come and apologize. We can't keep holding that hurt in our heart. It's hurting us, not them. So we have to recognize as young people that, look, this Christian warfare as it is not going to be an easy journey. And if it's easy, then it's the wrong path we're treading. Because look here, nothing good or nothing that's worth it comes very easily. Sometimes you have to go through some hard sweat and you have to bawl through the whole process in order to reach where you want to reach. And heaven is where we want to go. It's not going to be an easy journey. It isn't an easy journey. Once we expect the thorns to come at us from all angles, we will be better prepared. When I say prepare for the unexpected, sometimes something's really unexpected, but once our mind frame or our mindset is geared towards these things, we will know that, hey, when they come, all right, let me tread carefully so that I don't damage myself in the process. Because Satan wants us to damage ourselves. He comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But our God has come that we may have life. Once we keep these things in mind, then we will be okay. It may take time for us to heal from all the hurt that we have gone through, but we will be okay in Christ.
So powerful. Thank you so much, Jadine, for sharing. And I know persons who are listening to you were inspired and motivated by what you have just shared. We really appreciate it. As Pastor Larkin prepares to share with us some very interesting conversations on YouTube and Zoom, I'm leaving that one to you, my pastor. We will take Sister Bert and then Brother Isaacs, and then finally Sister Isaacs in that order.
Thank you. As I think about, how we go forward, moving forward, I would say I would encourage my leaders, my young people, to just be open-minded. We live in a dynamic world and nothing is like it was when we were growing up, when we were younger. Everything changes every day. Our young people are bombarded with all sorts of stuff day in, day out. And I just believe that if we approach every situation with an open mind, not quick to criticize, not quick to judge, but an open mind and a heart of love, and just asking for the Holy Spirit to just guide us in all our dealings, then yes, our young people, young adults alike will experience church hurt, but the way that it is dealt with then will, offer room for growth and reconciliation. I so love that word. I use that a lot. It's not so much to look at what has been done, but how can we reconcile them to the family of God. And so I just want to, recommend open-mindedness, be open-minded, expect the unexpected.
Amen. As Ezra is coming in, Pastor, you'd want to share a few of the comments before we take Ezra?
Absolutely. I'm seeing a comment here from Richard Robinson. He says, correction is not synonymous to separation. Rather, it should foster relation. Many of our leaders separate themselves from sin when they correct others. This will let the person feel even worse about what they had done. A great help is if the elder would make himself vulnerable by relating personal experience in line with the issue at hand. This will make the youth more receptive of a good word, as both persons are better able to relate to each other under the circumstances. And I see another comment here from Craig M. And persons watching on YouTube may not be seeing these in the chat. These are actually on the Zoom platform. Craig says, sometimes it feels easier to not stay at one church or just the Zoom sessions and live streams than go to church. I get upset and feel like I'm going to hell by going to church and getting bitter. Sometimes I don't feel any love. And so many young people I speak to just have that experience. And it's a heartbreaking experience to know that the church is supposed to be caring and fostering for young people. And there's so many young people hurting for various reasons. And I think this is something that we need to look into, Pastor, and ensure that our young people feel loved, appreciated, and included.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, my pastor. And so I want to encourage those who are on from leaders from various churches. Check the temperature of your church. Those who are not coming, why are they not coming? What are the experiences? And if something has happened that may result in church hurt, whether it is a a, a, a particular situation or a series of activities or interactions or an argument that you've seen outside or a fight that you've seen outside or someone that would have stopped coming because of comments to them, find out what is happening, get connected with them because there are persons that are really hurting inside. They're coming, but you don't know what they're feeling inside. And before you can make steps to address them, it's important to actually identify what is going on. So I'm really happy for the comments. Thank you so much for those who are sharing in the Zoom chat, those who are sharing on YouTube. The comments are going a far way to help person to heal as they're going through this experience at this time. We take Sir Ezra, we take Mrs. Isaacs in that order.
Oh, thank you. I just want Greg to know that he's loved. He needs to know that he's loved. All right. So just remember that, Greg. One thing that I think our leaders or the older persons need to try to do first is try to understand the youth that they're speaking to or the youth that they want to address. Try to understand the situation that they're in. I know sometimes we might see a young lady come to church in a short skirt, and before you are judge and executioner, try to understand or relate to them. So why are you wearing this skirt to church? They might just realize that a child only has one skirt for church. They might say, your man come to church and behave in a certain way. Try to understand why he's behaving that way, right? And then when you understand, I let them know that you're trying to understand, then you can show them the correct way of what they should do. All right. Some Brother Robinson alluded to of something is also very important. That sometimes our church leaders behave like they I was mentioning this to my wife earlier. That sometimes the leaders, an older person in church, would behave as if some of them they when Christ was born, they came next. They're without sin. Right? And that is a wrong approach. You need to allow the child, the youth to know that they were also vulnerable. They made mistakes. They made mistakes. They were once teenagers, and they know what it is to be a teenager. They know the temptation that you go through when you're a teenager. When you can allow them to understand that when you allow them to realize that you understand what it is to be in their shoes, then when you relate your situations to them, then it's easier for them to be receptive to you. I deal with children on a daily basis. I'm a high school teacher, and I teach fourth and fifth form, and I normally teach a group with some young men who don't normally behave themselves in a correct manner. So sometimes you have to get down to earth with them, and they understand how life is about, and they understand the situations that you have gone through, and how you realize that when you go down this road, you're not going to end up somewhere nice. So you have to know if you make a U-turn. So you have to be down to earth. You have to be real. You have to let them know that, look here, man, if you continue down this road, it's not going to be the right road for you. You need to create a change. I want to give an example. There's this elder. He's an elder at my church. He was a strict. He's still strict. But when he was an elder man, up to my father, this man beat. When my father was a child. Yeah, so yeah, man. So my wife know what I'm speaking about. Yeah, man, used to beat, man. Anytime you give trouble out of church, I hide behind the church. I hide behind the church, I look, I have a glimpse, because this elder is coming. So, anyways, I heard stories that he beat this man one time. This when he was a boy. From that man received a beating from me. He has never been back to church. You understand? So that is also a form of church hurt. But no, he's calm. He's loving, he's still strict, but his approach is different. So he's moving with the times. You understand? So we have to know how to adapt in the situation that we are in. Where you might talk to one child, you cannot talk to another child like that because they won't receive it the same way. For those youth who are thinking about leaving the church, it is the wrong time to leave the church. It's the wrong time. If you look at how the direction of the world, you realize that even if you're not a Christian, you don't believe in God, so you're pretty sure you go on social media, realize some person saying the world is coming to an end. America is not moving right, etc. All these things. Like we can feel the presence of the enemy on our fingertips with how the society, how the society, how the world is moving. So no, is there a wrong time to leave the church? I would also encourage them, if you are in situations where you experience church hurt, find somebody to talk to, find somebody who you trust, and relate that hurt to them, so that they can help you to solve the problem. So that is some approach that I would recommend.
Amen. Sister Isaacs, yes.
Okay. As a lot of persons already shared, I think the approach is very important. I don't think a lot of people know how to communicate, to be honest. I think communication is a big challenge for a lot of people. Um, so approach is very important. And trust me, youth, especially youth nowadays, they're a little sensitive. They're a little sensitive. So we have to bear that in mind. And I think a lot of people are quick to criticize and to point out this is wrong, all the flaws, as if they don't have flaws. But they point out the flaws and they point out the mistake, but they don't provide any solution. And in the event of pointing out the flaws, they don't teach. They don't say, they just say, oh, you shouldn't do this. But why shouldn't I do it? Like, what's wrong with it? I don't see anything wrong with it. For example, when I was younger, before I get baptized, I was going to the Adventist church before I got baptized. And I used to wear nail polish. I used to like to wear my red and my purple and I like bright colors. And one Sabbath, someone came to me and said, oh, you're not supposed to wear those colors. You need to clean off your toe. And that was it. And I did not know that, these colors are a problem. And the person just said, oh, you need to clean off your toe. I used to wear earring. Oh, when I go to church, you need to take out your earring. Why should I take out my earring? And I mean, I'm a child. I'm in my early teens. I don't know why, and nobody taught me, why I should not do these things. They just say, oh, don't do it. And that does not help me. It doesn't help a lot of people, right? So I think a lot of persons need to know how to communicate and, how to genuinely show love to a person and how to show that you care and you don't just talk to them when you see them on Sabbath. Only when you see them on Sabbath, you talk to them. I mean, you can check up, especially on young people. You can check up on them if it's even one time in the week. How you doing? How is everything going? A lot of persons it's just Sabbath when you go to church to talk to you. Outside the church, some of them, even if you see them on the road in the week, they still don't talk to you. And I mean, I would not want to go back to church either. That would hurt me. And it happened to me before, and I did feel hurt, but as I said, I continued to go to church. But a lot of persons are not like me. They wouldn't do what I have done. They would just stop going. And I know a lot of persons who have done that. So we definitely need to change our approach, learn how to communicate. And as we're talking about this, I remember a verse in Isaiah 56. If it's not verse 6, it's verse 8. And at the end of that verse, it says, um, my house, my house should be a place of worship for all people, something like that. It's not just for baptized people. Church is for everybody. People should feel comfortable with just walking in off the road and going in the church to worship without being judged. And I would really love to see our church reach at that level, or people just to feel comfortable to come in knowing that these people are loving. Like we need to manifest the character of Christ more. Don't just get up and say, I'm a Christian. Show that you're a Christian. You have to live as if you're a Christian. You can't correct people and you're not doing the correct thing in the first place. I grew up hearing that, your life should be the sermon. Your life should be the sermon. So don't just get up and talk, talk, talk. Talk is cheap. And as they always say, actions speak louder than words.
Powerful. Thank you so much to our dynamic youth leaders, Sister Isaacs, Brother Isaac, Sister Burke, and Sister Smith Cosley. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us on Talk Out, as we ensure that we amplify the voices of our young people. You have shared some very salient points. You have given some suggestions. You've given recommendations. And those who are on, I know, feel empowered, feel encouraged to know that this is not the end of their story. This is not the end of their journey. And if you are feeling church hurt, you can heal, you can be restored, and you can be elevated. I am sitting here as a pastor. Pastor Lakin is sitting here as a pastor because God was able to turn that church hurt into healing, but not only that, to give us the strength to press on for him. And so if someone is online, Pastor Liking, who might be feeling hurt and feel down and feel as though the love is not there, no, without a shadow of a doubt. As Ezra said, God loves you, and he is working on healing and providing that restoration. Trust in him, learn on him, lean on him, and know that he can carry you through. And maybe at some point that you'll be able to forgive, and be able to share your testimony and your experience with someone else who is experiencing church hurt. And they can also be empowered and encouraged to hold on to Jesus in difficult times. Pastor Liking, I want to leave with you the final word as we prepare to go for this evening.
Absolutely. I'm telling you, I was moved and heartbroken too because of some of the comments in the chat. And the statements made by our panelists this evening, powerful commentary. And I wish we had more time to share all of these comments that we're receiving, but I want to take the opportunity to thank you all for being a part of the program this evening. Thank you so much. And I want to also take this opportunity to invite you, if you're a young person here this evening and you're struggling, you're having a hard time, whether you're a part of our church or not, whether you're a Christian or not, I'm going to ask the technical team to post a link in the Zoom chat as well as on YouTube. Go ahead and click that and let us know. We'll reach out to you. We will pray with you. We will encourage you, and we will help you have that meaningful relationship with Jesus Christ. There is that link being posted in the Zoom chat as well as also on YouTube. Go ahead and click that link, and we will try our best to assist you, because we want you to know that you are loved. Christ loves you. You're here for a reason. And we want you to have that living, deep, and abiding relationship with Christ. And with that, we come to the end of episode 2 of season 1 of Talk Out. It's a very powerful, moving episode this evening. And of course, we're going to be back next week with another episode. It is going to be riveting. It is going to be powerful. It is going to be moving. And we expect you to be back with us next week, 7:30, right here on our YouTube channel, and of course the Zoom platform. Please go ahead, let other young people know that we have a space to hear your voice. We want to hear you this evening. So on behalf of the panelists, on behalf of the Youth Ministries Director here at Central Jamaica Conference, Pastor Dwayne Scott, I am Lincoln Liking. Have a good evening. Can you hear me now? We'll be hearing you next week.